you are a big proponent of self-education, right? So if someone is young, let's say younger than you, should they, and they've got $1,000, should they invest that in the market, or should they invest that in themselves to upgrade their skills so that they can earn more income? What's your answer?
So definitely not financial advice because I'm not qualified, but I would, if I had the $1,000, there's so many free resources out there. As I mentioned, this podcast, there's other podcasts, YouTube videos, and even books. You could get 3 or 4 books for 15, 20, $25 each, and there's $100 if you spent, but it's going to give you such a kickstart to your investment journey. And you don't kind of want to dive in blind. Obviously, $1,000 not life changing, but you still want to make the right decision when you're entering the market. So I'd say a mix of both. You can definitely educate yourself with a lot of free education and cheap education, and then also look to get in as soon as possible because it's compound interest. Once it does its thing, time in the market, you'll be laughing years from now.
You have a phobia. This is on your social handle. A phobia of working 9 to 5 till you die. You've given us a little bit of an entree onto where that comes from. But so Ben just talked before. Okay, we're pivoting from equities to shares. You've talked about podcasts and listening. What was the moment that you officially pivoted and then launched to doing what it takes to buy your first investment property?
Yeah, so it was an accumulation of things. So I got to the point, I was 22, so having worked since I was 14 and had been investing in shares, I'd amassed around $100,000 at the time. I was still at uni, so I was working, it was during COVID, so I was able to do full-time hours at the BP station that I'm still also working at. So as a casual, I was doing 30, 40 hours a week and also doing my uni studies. At the time, looking back, I probably would have gone it on my own. I just didn't have the understanding at the time. I didn't know that you could actually get a loan without being a full-time employee. I'd always thought that you just need a full-time job to kind of service a loan. But looking back, I was earning enough that I probably would have been able to. I definitely had the savings. But yeah, so I got to the point at 22, I'd done plenty of research. I still was very green and kind of somewhat naive at property. I knew enough that I knew I wanted to get involved, but I also knew enough that I didn't want to rush in and make the first investment a wrong one, which is arguably your most important investment is your first property if you go down that path. So me and Dad decided, it was his first investment property as well. We decided to go halves on a property. So we went to the broker, got all that kind of stuff sorted. We got a buyer's agent involved. As I said, I didn't have the education, the confidence or anything to pull the trigger and didn't want to make a mistake. So we got a buyer's agent involved and we purchased our first property in September 2022 for around $450,000. That's where I got started.
And Harley, one of the things that I remember on my early journey when I bought my first property around the same age, because I also had a very similar mindset to you and I was thirsty for knowledge and learning, and I built up a large sort of deposit as well, working part-time jobs whilst I was also studying. When that first leap of faith, when there's a large, sizable amount of money, to decide to do that with your dad is actually not a bad thing because it's sort of, do you know what I mean? It's almost like I've never learned how to swim, so diving in the deep end is just potentially at risk of, and it does feel like that, right? Because you work so hard for that money, so you get a greater sense of the value of money, and so I think that that's actually a sensible move. And if other, people are at your age who are thinking about that, have that conversation with your parents. I mean, just because, if people judge you as not necessarily being self-made because you had some help in the earlier stages, I say to those people, so what? Like, it really doesn't matter. I mean, the fact of the matter is, in other households and certain parts of the world, family wealth and looking at how things work and bringing all that stuff together is actually more meaningful in terms of the generational experience and the generational wealth that you do. So I just want to make sure that there's two things. There's a psychological moment that happens there, which is I'm going to sort of take a leap of faith, but I want to have someone holding my hand just for that first one. And then, as you then know, it's like, okay, the handbrake's off a little bit now. That one seems to have done all right. And then I feel like, no, now I can, try this on my own. Take us through that in your mindset. Like once that first one was bought, was there a little bit of apprehension and a little bit of that sort of buyer's remorse, or seeing that money go? Like, because that's the unknown, right? You haven't tread that path yet. Tell us a little bit about how you were thinking at the time.
Yeah, there's definitely always going to be an aspect of buyer's remorse. It's the biggest investment I've made at the time, and we bought in Perth, which I'd done the research and I liked the data myself. I wasn't confident fully in what my numbers were saying to me, and that's why we got a professional, we got a buyer's agent involved. Yeah, it was a big investment. Going in with my dad, it was just another kind of set of eyes that we could bounce ideas and bounce, well, do we think we go with this one? What do we think about this? It's just another set of eyes. Obviously, Dad wouldn't, he's not the biggest property investor. Like, as I said, that was kind of the first one we got into together, but it was just good to have a kind of a sounding board. But it was, pretty early on, we saw the growth, and it was kind of just reaffirming that we had made the right decision. And it's quite addictive once you get the first one and you do well with it.
When it does well, it is very addictive.